Okay, our first speaker then is Vijay Mehta. Vijay is president of the VM Center for Peace, founding trustee of the Fortune Forum charity, chair of Action for UN Renewal, co-chair of the World Disarmament Campaign. He is an author, a champion for truth, and global activist for peace, development, human rights, and the environment. His life, there's no doubt, his life is devoted to the service of peace, humanity, and our planet. Vijay is I meet Vijay all over the place. I attend meeting after meeting. Many of the meetings you've heard about tonight are being organized by Vijay. And I tell you, this man is the most active man. Vijay, thank you very much.
Thank you for, can you all hear me at the back? Okay. Thank you for kind introduction, Rob. But what Rob doesn't realize that I've got 6-7 clones who are attending different meetings. It's not just me. You can see me, but it's different people. Okay, thanks Meena and Rob and Joe and so many people I know and in the peace movement. Thanks for inviting me to come here. Actually, a remark about the venue here, once you find it's very comfortable. And secondly, that once I attended, me and Shanti, we went to Barcelona on a conference, and once we attended a youth meeting. And one of the things the youth suggested, because somebody said we can't get any more members, they said, oh, you should have meetings in wine bars and discos. So this is an ideal setting, which is a club. So we should have more meetings in clubs, so that people are encouraged. They might come for the meeting or they might come for the drink. Okay, now today is a very, very important topic, the UN Human Rights and Liberty, achievements and failures. And I'm going to speak about the prospects for the future as well. It's a privilege to be among dedicated peace and human rights activists. And let me say that you are thinkers and change makers, the driving force for social change, all of you here, in our world. And let me also applaud UNA Patni, a vibrant branch which is bringing UN ideals to reality. United Nations Human Rights and Liberty are interconnected and indivisible. It is true to say that without the United Nations, there would be no human rights, and without the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, I'm going to say UDHR for short, there will be no freedom, equality, and civil liberty. What I'm going to do today is to map up the fascinating journey of human rights, what it has achieved, what are the future challenges, and what can we do to promote human rights, and conclude with an upbeat note. Peace is unstable where citizens are denied international standards of human rights, as we have just heard from Neil. Wherever they are denied, where there's gender, racial, everything, and right to speech freely or worship as they please, choose their leaders and assemble without fear, like we have seen constantly on the television about the situation in Iran. Two examples come to mind of recent human rights violations. As I said, the election in Iran, where freedoms and democratic rights are continually denied to its citizens by its dictatorial leaders. And another is the case of the ban for constructing minarets in Switzerland. Of course, we know the appalling human rights records in countries like Sudan, Iran, Afghanistan, and of course the detention centers of Guantanamo Bay, Abu Ghraib, etc. And let me say this as well, that human rights violations occur not in only those kind of countries, but in developed countries, like in UK, for example. We can talk about that a bit later. So what has been achieved in the last 60 years? First of all, this document is a milestone. and it's been one of the greatest achievements of United Nations. And 61 years being passed when it was adopted, and it's universal, its relevance is more relevant today than ever. And it tells us about just when we came back from the horrors of the Second World War, the Declaration was the first global statement of what we now take for granted, the inherent dignity and equality of all human beings. The extraordinary vision of the framers or the drafters who produced the document for the first time set out human rights for all people in individual context. Translated in 360 languages. It is the most universally translated document in the world. And moreover, it has inspired the constitutions of the countries who became independent after it was framed. So what are the achievements? One of the foremost achievements of UDHR is that it has become laws and binds all governments. These are universal, they protect everyone without discrimination on race, religion, sex, children, women, refugees, and migrants. And extreme violations of human rights are also crimes under international law, like genocide, torture, crimes against humanity. And they can be prosecuted in national or international criminal code. And same, like when states act outside the country, they may also be bound by human rights law. Like British soldiers violated human rights of Iraqis held in military detention centers. Governments are equally bound to protect economic, social, and cultural rights, as well as civil and political rights. So these are some of the and the other achievement, biggest achievement, is that you can find a human rights group existing in each and every country because of that. Let me take two examples. One, protection from torture, and the other, responsibility to protect doctrine. The protection from torture, Article 5, which is a history lesson tracing the journey from abstraction of Article 5 of UDHR, which is no one shall be subjected to torture or to cruel or inhuman and degrading treatment and punishment, to General Pinochet's dramatic arrest in London over 10 years ago. When Amnesty International started its campaign against torture 35 years ago, it found that torture was a violation of UDHR, but there was no international law to back it up, and torture was often not an offense in national law. So civil society's great campaign has brought it up, what we call CAT, which is 1984 Convention Against Torture, which prosecutes, it trains police, it's got doctors, prison officers, etc. In 1998, Pinochet was arrested under Convention Against Torture. It was a historic moment when the international human rights law came of age. In Chile, the unthinkable. However, we got challenges like the detention centers in Guantanamo Bay, Bagram Air Base in Afghanistan, and rendition of the countries notorious for practicing torture, including the horrific images we saw on the television from Abu Ghraib, which took place. Now let me move on to responsibility to protect, which is another bold doctrine based on human rights, which was achieved at the World Summit 2000 Leaders in New York. The doctrine is developed in the light of situations where states were unable or unwilling to protect human life and integrity, where genocide, crimes against humanity, ethnic cleansing was taking place. So in that case, we have to invoke the responsibility of the international community, the United Nations, and all the countries so that it doesn't happen. So we can discuss that a bit later. So let me speak about, now these were the achievements, now let me speak about what are the future challenges. One of the biggest challenges is to prevent security measures, which we are seeing here, undermining human rights, which is erosion of civil liberty under war on terror, reduced protection against torture, and targeting some ethnic marginalized communities, which is happening all over Europe, all over the world. How to exert intense diplomatic pressure so that countries that are in violation of human rights acknowledge and change abusive practices, like in China, Iran, and other countries. How to ensure that populations in situations like Darfur are protected.